Hi, this is Jim Gibson with CableSupply.com, and wanted to talk about the Russian hacking. Oh, the Russians are hacking us all over the place when you listen to the news. It's sort of like they cannot discuss the news without talking about Russian hacking here and there. At any rate, let's talk about the Russian hacking. And it's not going to be a political viewpoint. I do have a political viewpoints. I'm sure everyone does, or at least a majority of people do. It's not about that at all. It's going to be only about the technical. So if you get upset, check to see what I'm saying, because all I'm talking about is what actually happened in the hackings. To give you a little bit of background on myself, so you know I have a little bit of credibility on talking about this. I started in the Marine Corps back in '79, and my first day in IT, after all my schooling and everything else, was September 17th, 1979, started. And the first job I had was in a data center where we dealt with unclass all the way up to top secret information. And we dealt with it on a regular basis, and I was responsible for about 10 or 15 Marines. I was a second lieutenant at the time, and we managed the data center on our shift, and it was 24/7, and it was 8 hours on and 24 hours off, constantly rotating schedule. Really hard to do after a while, constantly changing your sleep pattern. And then, of course, I graduated the Marine Corps as a captain many years later, 13, 12, 11, 13, 12, I don't know, so many years later. And since then, what have I done? Well, been in IT that whole time, been in IT since '79. And as far as cybersecurity, I've always done cybersecurity. I knew about it, I trained, I keep on reading about it. You know, the old thing is you getting up at 4 in the morning is the best time to study. It really is. I really love IT, so it's really easy to do. It's quiet, no one's calling me on the cell phone, and it's just a great time. But I also decided, you know, maybe I should get certified on this. So I went after what's called a CISSP certification, and stands for Certified Information Systems Security Professional. And it's a worldwide recognized certification. And it's you got to take an exam. It's a 6-hour exam. It's a pretty hard exam, and you have to be you have to be endorsed by someone else that has the certification. So they check your background to make sure that you've been active in cybersecurity. You have to have activity. You have to actively be involved in cybersecurity for 5 years. You can't be a felon, and you can't be associated with any evil hackers, and you can't be an evil hacker yourself. You sign an agreement for ethics, an ethics agreement, and if you violate the ethics agreement, you lose the certification for life. You can never get it back. So that's my background. I've been in cybersecurity most of my life, and I've done a lot of it for the government, for civilians, for businesses, stuff like that. So when I talk about this subject about the hacking, the Russian hacking into our election, I do have a pretty serious background. It's not that I can't learn something new. I enjoy the subject, so I'm always trying to learn something new and probably work on some other certifications in different areas that are related. But for now, let's talk about the Russians. Oh, those evil Russians that are just doing all the sorts of things in our system out there. Well, it started with a young man called Guccifer. That was his nickname, I guess, he used online. And Guccifer was an Eastern European individual who I would not consider a very proficient hacker. I don't think he had any hacking skills, actually, except for the ability to guess people's passwords. And what he did is he researched Mrs. Clinton's email server and he figured out what her password is. He just kept on trying it over and over again. It's called brute force. And of course, investigating, he just looked at her, her dog's name, the street she used to live on, and I don't know what her password was. I'm sure it's out there in public somewhere what it was. But it was pretty easy guessable password. And so once he got in, one of the things that he said when he was investigated and charged with the crime of illegal hacking, he said that it was fairly easy to break into her system. It didn't take a lot of effort, and he did it in a short time period. But he also noticed that there was other people in the system as he was in the system. And so he noticed that. That was the first thing he noticed. But the second thing he did was he copied a lot of her emails. And remember, a lot of her emails are top secret. So he copied a lot of her emails, and then he published them with TMZ and some of the other news organizations. And that was the first revelation to the general public that she had a email account that was hacked. And then, of course, today it kind of gone into this thing about the Russians did it and the Russians did it. And it seems to me the only proof they have that the Russians did it was the IP address comes from Russia. So they had to do it. It was their IP address. They had to be the ones that broke into the system. Well, I'm sorry to say if that's what you're holding on to prove that the Russians, the Russians are causing me to sneeze. If that's the only thing you could prove, or you have as proof that the Russians actually hacked into our system, that's pretty flimsy proof, because elite hackers, of which Russia has a lot of elite hackers, we have a lot of elite hackers, the Chinese have a lot of elite hackers, the North Koreans have a lot of elite hackers, the Ethiopians probably have a lot of elite hackers. Actually, you really didn't need that to break into that system. You didn't need an elite hacker, because Guccifer was not an elite hacker. He just guessed her password. He didn't know any of the other principles involved in hacking or any of the experience that's necessary to do it proficiently. Anyway, they claim that it was that the Russians did it because of the IP address. There's a big problem with that. Elite hackers spoof their IP address. And what I mean by spoof is they trick their IP address, so you think that they have an IP address from one place, and in reality they're coming from another. It's actually pretty easy to do. You also have the dark net. You also have a lot of servers around the world that you can bounce off of, and the elite hackers sometimes break into other people's servers and then use that server as a launching point to do a hack on another server, so you can't trace it back. They're not traceable. They're really not traceable. If they were traceable, then our government would have by now been able to trace every single person that put out ransomware. You know what ransomware is, right? They break into your system, and then they turn around and they encrypt your data, and then they turn around and send you an email using an IP address and telling you that you have to give them a certain amount of money and they'll give you the password to get your data back. Well, if it was so easy to track people, then we would have found out all these people and who they were and everything else. But it's not easy. And a lot of the IP addresses are fake IP addresses, spoofed IP addresses. So the question really arises, well, did the Russians really hack her? And I think, yeah, absolutely they did. But they weren't the only ones. The Chinese hacked it. The North Koreans, everybody hacked her website. Now, how do I know that? Because that's what they do. They hack all the time, and so do we. And they hack their friends, and they hack their enemies, and we do the same thing. We hack everything out there, and they hack everything that's out there. This is no secret. So to think that the Russians have done something that's unusual and should be like grounds of aggression and war against us, well, then you're going to have to be at war against everybody on the planet, even our friends, because they do it all the time. And it's well known that this goes on. So, you know, the Chinese knew about this, and I'm sure they didn't say, well, let's be honorable here, let's respect the privacy of Mrs. Clinton's email server, and we will not hack into it. Of course they hacked into it. They copied every single email she has. Even the missing ones, I'm sure, are out there sitting there in the Chinese or the Russians and the Ethiopians and the ninth grader down the street has hacked into the system. It was so easy to hack into. It really had virtually no security on her system. In fact, one of the security people who looked at her system said that Ashley Madison system had more cybersecurity than Mrs. Clinton's email server. And I don't know if you remember, Ashley Madison's system was hacked into, and the hackers asked for a ransom. They had all the names of people that signed up for it. It was a sex-oriented website, and so they didn't get the money. So they turned around and they revealed all the users of this website to the world, and it was embarrassing to a lot of sometimes famous people. But the bottom line is that they had more cyber security on their system than Mrs. Clinton had on hers. So that's how the hacking story started. And in reality, and again, I'm emphasizing this, everybody hacked her system. It was easy to hack. There was not a lot of security in that system. There was no security, in fact. It was just taking a server with a software firewall and plugging it into the internet. Does not give you any type of security on your system. It's easily hacked. And again, even a ninth grader out there fooling around could have broken into that system. But that's really not the point. The point is, why would you start your server like that, email server, and then not put serious security on it? That does not make sense. You're just opening yourself up for hacking. But I think even if she had some, what you would call basic security, it still would have been hacked by elite hackers. They know how to get in these things. You really have to build a system from beginning to end. And you have to start out with serious firewalls that are programmed by people who know what they're doing. And then, of course, you have routers, and that router in there, that needs to be programmed appropriately. And the switch, a lot of people buy these cheapo switches, and they have absolutely no ability to do cybersecurity. And you really need to do cybersecurity even on a switch, or else people from the inside could steal information. They could listen to conversations on VoIP, things like that. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, how can they do that? Because it's a switch, and some of you people that have knowledge of what a switch does and what a router does, you're forgetting about the fact that there are software out there that's really easy to get on the internet. One of them is called MacOff, where it can flood the switch with a ton of MAC addresses and therefore turn the switch into a hub, and therefore you can listen to all the conversations. There's a lot of other ways to do it. Okay, take my word for it. If you don't properly design a network and you don't have proper security in depth, you got to have in depth. When I was learning about infantry in the Marine Corps, we always learned about defense in depth. If someone got through the outside perimeter, the FEBA, forward edge of the battle area, that you should defend in depth. So you should have other defenses. You shouldn't just have one. So if you just have a firewall, you throw a firewall in there and you walk away and you think you're safe, or you throw some software on your computer and you say, hey, I'm safe, you're not. You're not safe at all. You got to have defense in depth. We could talk about this forever because this is a subject that I love. You got to have intrusion prevention systems. You have to connect your routers and switches together on a backplane so that you can change passwords at the appropriate time on everything, and you have to have the passwords verified with other software and keep track of what's being written on each piece of equipment, things like that. It just goes on and on. We could have days on how to seriously secure networks. None of that took place on Mrs. Clinton's email. I was kind of disturbed over the fact that even the password was cheesy. I remember the other day I was at a meeting with some friends, and they were going to talk about training people on how to set up passwords. So I'm always interested in setting up passwords, seeing what other people say, see if they have an idea. And this guy had a really, what he called a cool trick. Anytime you hear that word trick, just remember, trickery is not security, according to the famous Sean Harris. If you read her books in cybersecurity, trickery is not security. Now, when you think you're smarter than everyone else and you come up with these little tricky ideas, you know, I remember the guy who taught me a lot about cybersecurity in Marine Corps, a very brilliant dude, warrant officer, W05, man, he was really up there, did it for a long time. And he said, whatever code man creates, man can break. So follow the rules. And it's the same thing with setting up passwords. There is no trickery in passwords that are going to get past the test on cybersecurity. Just follow the rules, the proven rules, the standards, the way we do things. And that's the safest way to do it and have defense in depth. Anyway, getting back to the story about the trickery way that people do things when it comes to cyber security or setting up passwords. In this particular case, this guy's setting up passwords. What he said was, he said, you know, you take your first name and then you take one of the letters and capitalize it. And his comment was, quote, it will take at least a half hour. Once you capitalize one of the letters in the name, it'll take at least a half hour for them to break that. And then what you do is you put the year, and that will add another 2 hours. And then you put the last 2 digits of the code you're in, or the software you're in, and that will be it. It'll take them years to break that. Well, brute force attempts into a system can break things like that in relatively short time period. So that's not true, and there are no trickeries in cybersecurity. You shouldn't try to trick people. You should just follow the rules. And that was not a good advice to the people in the room, but most people in the room did not know cybersecurity, and they just thought that was the greatest thing on earth. I did not. That was not the way to go. So her password really wasn't that great, and if you could guess it, then it's not a good password. It needs to be completely random. Today, I hear people talk about 8 digits. I think 8 digits is too small. I think you need at least 16 or more, and it should be random, upper, lower case letters. It should be numbers, should be involved in there, and symbols. And if you do that, that's really a good password. And it should be at least 16 digits. And you can, it shouldn't be any dictionary words, and it should be completely random. I have some software that generates passwords that are completely random. Then you should really change them on a regular basis. You shouldn't have them in there for years. That's how you set a password. But even that, when it comes to elite hackers, they can get through that stuff. They can figure out other ways to do it. And we could talk about all the ways that people have broken into systems, and we'd be here for days. But at least do the right thing at the beginning. Set a good password. And she did not have that. So talking about another problem in the password, one of her assistants had a Google account. Now, that's probably not a good idea if you're running a national organization. For someone running for president, it's not a good idea to use Google, Gmail. But at any rate, he had a Gmail account, and he got a piece of paper. Podesta, that was his name, Podesta. He had an email, supposedly in his eyes it was from Gmail, saying that his password was compromised, he needs to set a new password. And I've seen this, I get people that send me those emails, you know, say, Jim, your email's been compromised, you got to change it. And your administrator said to do it. Well, I'm the administrator, and I didn't say to do it, so I know it's fake. But to make a long story short, that's what he got. He did the right thing. He went to his IT guy, and he took this document to his IT guy and or forward it to him or whatever, and ask the IT guy what should he do, and the IT guy mistakenly said, well, yeah, change your password, or right there, that is from Google and you need to do it. I see this often. It's not from Google, it's fake and it's a hacker. But of course his password could have been easily brute forced attacked also, because he used the word password with changing the S's and making them dollar signs. Hackers are really pretty good at that stuff. They already have databases that replace S's with dollar signs. So if you're using anything that resembles a dictionary word, it's not a good password. And you should not use it at all. So it's just a bad thing. I remember a lady once called me, and she was a salesperson, and I like salespeople. I learn things from them, and they provide a service, even though some people get annoyed with them. They do provide a service. And so I was talking to the lady, and she was asking me what our companies do. We have a group of companies. And I told them one of the things we do, after other things like cabling and stuff like that, one of the other things we do is we also do cybersecurity. And she said, oh, just right before I got you picked up, I was going through my email and I got an email from Amazon that said my password was compromised. It had the Amazon symbol at the top, everything else. And she said, as soon as I get off the phone, I'm going to change my password because it says that it's been compromised, a hacker's been in our system, and they know it. Well, first of all, if the hacker has your password, how do they know that a hacker's in your system and not you? They don't. So to make a long story short, and plus Amazon and Gmail and all, they don't send you letters asking you to change your password because they've been a hacker in your system. That just doesn't happen. So anyway, to make a long story short, she says, as soon as I get off the phone, I'm going to change my password. That's right here on the screen, and all I need to do is type in my old password, type in a new. And I said, oh, ma'am, please don't do that. That's not Amazon. Please erase that email. Go to Amazon if you want to replace your password, and replace your password. And she said, oh, no. I know what I'm doing. This is Amazon. It has their logo at the top. I know it's them. She goes, so have a good day, I'm going to do this. And she's okay. Told her not to. I'm sure she got hacked, or I'm sure her account got hacked at Amazon. So there's things that you need to do when it comes to cybersecurity. And right now, just talk to some IT guys. Okay, if you're an IT guy, and you've taken maybe a class or something on cybersecurity, or you've read something about it, and you decide that you're a cybersecurity person and you're going to put up a firewall and put out the shingle that you're cybersecurity. Don't do that. It takes a lot more training than just something you could pick up even in a year. You really have to train at it, and it doesn't make you a cybersecurity person like that password person said he was in that event. It just doesn't do anything. I mean, it's good that you're learning and all, but it doesn't mean that you can set up a system that's even close to secure in that area. I do remember I talked to a big corporation that had 1,000 switches and routers in their system, a big corporation. And they had an IT guy, and the IT guy is a nice guy, and I never throw an IT guy under the bus unless he's unethical. So anyway, I was talking to the CEO, and I was talking to the IT guy, and I said, I do believe, after looking at their system and all, I said, I do believe that your network is unsecure and you're probably being hacked. And he said, no, I'm not being hacked. I know this stuff. We're absolutely fine. Besides, who would hack us? Well, I've heard that so many times, it's unbelievable. And so I convinced the CEO that they should do a penetration test. So they did a penetration test, a pen test, and where we have someone come in and with a proper authority, and this is ethical and legal, so it's not a hacker per se, it's an ethical hacker. He's doing this as a service, showing where the mistakes are in the system. So they come in and they try to hack the system. And of course he said that there was not a router or switch that he could not discover, and at the same time that he could not hack within 5 minutes. And so when we presented this truth, this report to the CEO and to the IT department, they were surprised. And so we recommended that they get certain type of equipment, intrusion prevention systems, a decent firewall rather than that one that they picked up at Fry's, and that they get a company that could program that for them and actually set it up properly and do some work. And they did, and it takes a while. It's going to take a while before they're done. But when he came back with his report after about 2 months of the new equipment in place, and when asked how many people have been trying to break into a system, he said at least 5 every 15 minutes. So that's 20 attempts an hour of people trying to break into his system. Take my word for it, this is serious stuff, and it's not something taken lightly. So if you're an IT guy, you got to remember you have some liability here if you claim that they are secure when in reality they are not, because the right equipment and the right programming and the right policies. And really you start with policies with bigger companies. Some of the smaller companies you should have policies, but I get the sense they don't pay attention to you. But the bigger companies sometimes are smart enough that they actually pay attention and they actually start with the policies at a board level or at the C level, and then these policies are pushed down to the IT department. IT department should recommend policies, but they should not set policies. That's a C level requirement, to set policies. You know, it's interesting, we get to talk to a lot of people and all, and we were invited to put in a proposal to manage the system. And the system had 7 locations, and we're pretty good with multiple locations because we have 6,000 installations all over the United States in every single state. And so this is pretty much our bread and butter, or one of our bread and butters at Nova Voice and Data. And we do this all the time. We've been doing it for, 28 years now. And we really started with national accounts, and we still do it, and it's kind of easy for us. So we thought this is a good fit for us, this company that had multiple locations. And so we sat around the table, and of course the decision maker wasn't there. And they were giving us the diagrams for the network and everything else, and they said they were going to fire their company that manages it now, or their IT guy, I don't know which, and they wanted us to give a proposal on taking over the network. And I said, well, yeah, absolutely. I said, but looking over all this documents or anything else, it's probably going to take us about 16 to 24 hours to go through your network and to come back with a proposal of how we can maintain it. And I said, and it's going to cost you about $8,000 for us to do that. And I said, we have a Microsoft expert, MCSE. I am not a Microsoft expert. I know how to do servers. I can set up a server, but you don't want to hire me to do Microsoft. So that's why we have a Microsoft expert. And then, of course, we have people that are experts in infrastructure and cabling, because you see a lot of my videos that deals with that. And then, of course, me and some others have a background in cybersecurity, so we have that. And we have Cisco certified technicians, so we have the network down. So we have it from beginning to end, pretty much everything. And we have people that have 25 plus years experience in all these things. And so it's reasonable to say that we looked at the paperwork and know the size of your network and know it's going to take at least 24 hours for us to look at everything. You look at the patching. Is there patching taking place? How old is the software? What is the routers and switches? How are they programmed if they're decent routers and switches? What are you doing at your firewall? What is your bandwidth between all these areas, all these locations? And so we proposed that, but we said we will forgive the $8,000 if we can spend 1 hour, just 1 hour, with the decision maker after we do our research. And we will give you all the results of our research, the areas where you're strong, the areas where you're weak, the areas where you need help. And but we just request 1 hour of the decision-making person, decider. And they turned us down. And he did not want to spend an hour with us. So that told me he just didn't value us, for sure, but most likely IT. And we're just probably going to work there for 6 months and get fired ourselves like the other company that came before us. So we declined to give a proposal. You can't give a proposal on a system you don't know anything about. And if you're serious about IT, then you really need a company that's serious about it also. You got to have people that have experience in this, and it's going to cost money to have experienced individuals that come in and to look through your system. And so for someone to say, I'm going to bring in all these experts that have decades of experience to look at, fine-tooth look at your, your system, but all we need is this 1 hour of your time to say, nope, not going to do it, just give us a proposal, and it wasn't our customer. So I got a couple things to say. First of all, if you are a C-level person and you don't have a strong background in IT, and I'd say strong, I would say if that's not your main job, then you don't have a strong background in IT. Then realize that there are people out there that can help you in this area, but put a value in this. IT can either support your operations or it can hinder it. Remember, the most important thing you have in your business is your database. And IT can either help you do your business faster, better, and everything else. It can be an asset, or it's a liability. And if you view IT as nothing more than an expense, a liability, then you're probably behind the time, because everyone else is getting with the program here, I guess you could say, or not everyone, but the majority of people are starting to catch on that IT can be an asset, not just a liability, where that's the way it was viewed 5 years ago. But at the same time, if you don't take serious, educated precautions and make sure you design your system for cybersecurity, and then you're going to be hacked, and you're going to lose your database, or you're going to have problems with your database. It's going to be issues in there. You got to take it seriously, and if you don't, then companies that are serious like mine aren't going to take your offer serious. Why would a serious company just throw out some numbers and then try to justify them 3 or 4 months down the road? It just isn't going to work. The next thing, if you're an IT guy, and I think I already touched on this, if you're an IT guy, you really need to understand when you're in over your head. Like if someone would ask me, well, I want you to set up a server and e-commerce site, I would never do that. Okay, I can get a server to work for myself at my home, and I can fool with it and everything else, but if you want the fine-tuning of Microsoft products, I'm not the person to do it. And especially if you want a e-commerce website set up, no, I don't do that. I have someone else that does it for me. So realize that if you're an IT guy, don't sit there and think because you've watched a video on cybersecurity that you have it down. I mean, that's great, you're watching those videos. In fact, one of the best videos out there are CBT Nuggets. I really enjoy them. I could watch them forever. Those guys are really, really good at what they do. And they have cybersecurity videos on there. So they'll talk about hacking, and they'll talk about CCNA security and things like that. And they're really just right on. And they're easy to listen to, and they're really fantastic people. And they have a great program. It's just really good. And then, of course, there's books on it. You can always get books on it and study the books. And I get up sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning. Most mornings I get up 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's the best time for me. Now, it may be different for you, but it's the best time for me between 4 and 6. To study, to read, to listen to these videos. There's a lot of other companies out there too that have serious videos. But the CBT Nuggets seem to me to be the best for me. I'll listen to them. I'll listen to a video a day or something like that, or I'll study a book. Because I'm in, what do you call it? IT management, I'm not a technician. Now, can I program a router and switch? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't do it every day, so it's not necessarily the best person to do that. So I realize where I am a manager, and that's what I've been pretty much since the beginning of IT. But I can also do the things, but that's not what I do every day. But I need to know these subjects. I need to know how it works and why it works and where the problems are and how to fix the problems and how to program it. So if you're an IT guy, go at it. Learn some stuff. But just don't be like that guy at that event where he came up with his trickery and that's all you need on your system. It's like, oh no, please, 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 please. Don't say that. That's almost embarrassing. Don't do that. Take it seriously. It's a serious thing. And if you want to pursue cybersecurity, a couple things. You should know. Start out with basic computers. You can learn about them and everything else. Then you need to learn networks. Not just networks where we talk about IP addresses and routers and switches. That's necessary, but also infrastructure. You should know infrastructure, so you know all the different layers of networking. And then at that point, you should also learn the iOS. You should learn Microsoft. At least have a good grasp of it. Maybe not like me want to set up servers every day. I do not want to do that, or program systems from scratch. I don't care for that. But you should at least know what an iOS is and how to patch it and how to program it and some basic stuff. Same thing with Linux, things like that, or any other iOS that you're going to be using. And then, of course, at that point, and once you know networks and your basic ideas in all these areas, then you can start in cybersecurity. It really is not a step above, but you have to have the background to start with to do cybersecurity. A background in networking and cabling, in PCs, in operating systems, in you know, routers, switches, and everything else. Anyway, there's a lot that went on. There's hackings that take place every day, and most of the times it's because people are not taking cybersecurity seriously. And they're doing silly things when it comes to securing networks. One last story, and then I'll let you go. And I think that most people in IT will appreciate this. So I'm sitting here in my own office, right, and I get that there's a friend of a friend of a friend that wants to talk to me about some situation that she has at her office. And I said, sure. And she shows me a picture in her that she took with her camera on the you know, on her smartphone, and sure enough it was Cryptolocker. And she says to me, what do I do? I've never seen this before and we can't get into our database. And she had about I think 10 to 15 employees, and I said, well, I said, it's no problem. And I said, just erase all your databases, everything else, and reload all your software, and then reload your backup system. And she said, well, my backup system was encrypted. And I said, it was? How's that? And she said, well, the RAID drive that we had, there was extra room on it, so the IT guy just did backup to the RAID. Boy, that violates so many principles in IT, I can't tell you. But at any rate, he was backing up to the RAID, and that was it. Didn't have any other copies, and of course it violates the copy, 1 is none, 2 is 1 when it comes to backups. And I said, well, I said, then you either have to recreate your database somehow, or you're going to have to pay the ransom, or you're going to have to start over again. She says, you know, I can't start over again. I'm 15 years doing this. I said, well, ma'am, I can't help you beyond that. I said, so let me know how it works. And so I would say about 3 weeks later, a month later, she came back and she said, oh, we're back up and working. I said, well, fantastic. How'd that happen? And she said, well, I found out that my employees kept all their work on their thumb drive. I can't tell you how wrong that is. But anyway, I kept all the work on the thumb drive. So we're basically back there, but I lost a lot of other data, and we could probably survive. And I said, well, you're IT guy. Now again, my thoughts are don't throw IT guys under the bus, because I've been in that position many times, and it's painful working for big corporations and having some expert come in and throw you under the bus. It's not fun. And of course, there's always someone who knows more than you do, than I do. I'm the same way. I'm constantly learning. But at any rate, I said, tell me a little bit about your IT guy. And she goes, oh, he's fabulous. He is a friend of a friend. He knows PCs in and out. He loves playing PC games. He spends all his time on the computer with games and all. And I said, well, you might want to consider getting a professional IT guy in there, a guy that has a background and experience. I said, because you lost a lot of data that you may never be able to recover. And she said, no, I'd never trade him. We like him, and he's a nice kid. And besides, he's very inexpensive. We only pay him like $1 above minimum wage. And I said, oh, sometimes you confuse, or you're confusing the cost with the price. I said, you've been down for weeks. I said, what did that cost you? And, she just wasn't budging on that issue. I said, you really need to have an IT guy that knows when he's in over his head to call in somebody else, and you need to support your IT guy when he's in over his head. So when he calls in someone else, he's actually helping you. Anyway, these are a bunch of stories for another video. We could talk about the price of IT, which is pretty fixed, believe it or not. It's either you pay it one way or you'll pay it another way. It's either you pay it to get good people in there taking care of you, or to get the experts to come in to help your IT guy, because there's no experts in this, complete experts that know everything in IT. That's impossible. Or you'll pay it by losing your database someday, or by not getting the service that you need. And having 10 to 15 professionals sitting around staring at a screen waiting for an IT guy to figure out Cryptolocker, that's pretty expensive. Where if you would have had a really good guy at the beginning, it would not have been as expensive a proposition. So to bring it back completely to end it, did the Russians hack our system? Yes, they did. The proof you have, though, is kind of flimsy, but everybody knows they did anyway. Everybody in IT that knows anything about cybersecurity knows they did. And they also know that the Chinese have done it. Everybody has broken into the system. Is not, if you're going to claim that is areas, for war, that's warfare and everything else, and everybody would be at each other. What you really need to focus is this last piece. Why would anyone set up a personal, private email system that had top secret information on it? Why would you do that, first of all? And secondly, why in the world would you do that without any type of security on it, assuming that no one will discover it and break into it? That's really the thing that should be discussed on the news every day. Why are we lacking the cybersecurity of our networks that are so important? And when are we going to start treating this at a higher level? I'd love to tell you some other stories in this area, but it's getting kind of late. Maybe for another day. Some things that cause me to scratch my head of why people do what they do. But we're all learning, and remember, if you are an expert in certain areas, try to be gracious to us that are not experts in that area, and don't throw us under the bus. Try to get support for fellow IT guys that are learning, and we're all in a learning phase. Thank you for watching my video. Again, this is Jim Gibson with CableSupply.com, also Nova Voice and Data Systems, Inc., and also Blackstone Cyber Security. Again, thank you for watching. You have a great day. Hi, this is Jim with CableSupply.com. Hi, this is Jim from CableSupply.com. Hi, this is Jim with CableSupply.com, and today I'm going to show you how to cut a hole in the drywall.
This is David signing out. You stay classy, Internet.